Now, the law doesn't cover the supreme crime of aggression because it mirrors the International Criminal Court statute, which doesn't have it. And the Americans made sure that the International Criminal Court statute did not have the supreme international, that's like having a criminal code without murder in it. So they made sure that it wasn't in the International Criminal Court statute. They were going to sign it anyway, but people were so anxious to try to get them on side. They said, okay, you don't want that crime in there. And I know because the guy who was in charge of this said, we couldn't have that crime in there because that's the one we were being charged with committing all the time. But there are lots and lots that cover what George Bush has been up to for 8 years, still remaining in that statute. I'll quote to you from the statute. War crimes, when committed as part of a plan or policy or as part of a large-scale commission of such crimes. So far, I think we fit pretty well. And they include, and this isn't the definition, this is Canadian law, willful killing, torture or inhuman treatment, willfully causing great suffering or serious injury to body or health, extensive destruction and appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully, willfully depriving a prisoner of war or other protected person of the rights of fair and regular trial, unlawful deportation or transfer or unlawful confinement. Other serious violations, they say, intentionally launching an attack in the knowledge that such an attack will cause incidental loss or life or injury to civilians or damage to civilian objects, which would clearly be excessive in relation to the concrete and direct overall military advantage anticipated. Killing or wounded a combatant who, having laid down his arms or having no longer means of defense, has surrendered. Employing poison or poisoned weapons, employing asphyxiating, poisonous or other gases. Here one thinks of the white phosphorus and the thermobaric weapons they used in Fallujah. Committing outrages upon personal dignity, in particular humiliating and degrading treatment. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better definition of the shock and awe campaign that was launched in March 2003 and continues basically up until this day. Now, every one of these offenses carries with it, each one of them carries a punishment of life imprisonment. Okay? You get a longer sentence than Conrad Black for one of these things. Bush didn't do anything by any of these things by himself. Of course, you say Bush didn't do anything, commit any of these offenses by himself. Neither did Adolf Hitler commit any of these offenses by himself. According to law, you're guilty if you counsel. These are just quoting the legal terms. Counsel or tell anybody to do it. Or if you fail as a superior to exercise control properly over a person under his effective authority and control, and as a result, the person commits the offense. Or you know a person is about to commit or commit such an offense, is committing an offense, and you consciously disregard the information that clearly indicates such an offense is being committed by the person. Does it sound familiar? Sound like George Bush to you? So Canada has plenty of law with which to prosecute George W. Bush. We also have a law, just mentioned in regards to George Galloway, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, that renders absolutely inadmissible to Canada war criminals like Bush. In other words, Galloway was under this vague thing of, dangers to the interests of Canada. But the law says war criminals, people who have committed these crimes under this act, they're absolutely inadmissible. There's no exception. And, the government has been notified, as it was in 2004 when he visited, to be on the lookout for this scumbag who was trying to get into Canada. So, we have all the laws, we have all the means of keeping them out. But the Conservative government hasn't acted on it, of course, just like the Liberal government didn't in 2004 in Ottawa. Remember, some of you were in Ottawa, the streets were completely taken over by protesters. Bush was holed up in a corner of the town behind a police cordon, double police cordon, while Paul Martin was fawning over him and apologizing for not sending our soldiers to kill and be killed in Iraq. So they didn't keep him out. Okay, you might say, sweet, he's here. He's fallen into our trap, right? We arrest him, put him on trial, and we get Richard Wolfson to cross-examine him, and from the Oliphant Inquiry, if you saw it, and it's history. But, of course, Bush's lawyers know about all these laws, and the reason he's coming is, I have no doubt, he was given guarantees that he won't be bothered by any such annoyances as an arrest for mass murder or anything like that, a kind of amnesty like Mulrooney got from Revenue Canada And this is a good guarantee because the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act can't be triggered, it says, without the personal consent in writing of the Attorney General of Canada. You can't even start things going without that. And that's a guy named Rob Nicholson, and he's a big Tory appointed to his position by Stephen Harper. So the question, I guess, it might be a question, why would our government give Bush guarantees of this sort, that he won't be bothered for his unbelievable crimes? You know, they're law and order freaks in the Tory caucus. Have they gone soft on murder or something? You know, but the reasons are pretty simple. We can all guess. It's because, really, the hands of the government of Canada are just as covered with the blood of Iraqis and Afghanis and anybody who the Americans have killed as the Americans government themselves, because we've been in Afghanistan under American command right from the beginning. And we went to Afghanistan because the Americans wanted us there to free up troops to go to Iraq. We have eyewitnesses to meetings. You know, Janice Stein, another guy, published a book where this McCallum, remember McCallum, he sort of lumbered drunkenly down to Washington. We said, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? Well, what he said was, what do you want us to do? And Rumsfeld said, we want you, NATO, because NATO's, you know, all these 26 countries, but the Americans, you know, from Dwight Eisenhower down have always been the commanders of it, said, we would like you to go into Afghanistan so we can send our troops to Iraq. And we said, yes, ready, I'm ready. So we knew what they were doing, and we helped them, and we've got every bit of blood that they've got. We're their best friends in that regard. We aided and abetted everything that's gone on. So why would we charge them with crimes when we're as guilty? At least our governing elites are as guilty as they are. More importantly, I think that basically the governing class of Canada, the elite governing class, however you want to call them, we call them the ruling class, the governing class. That includes, of course, the corporate media, because, of course, nobody is, the papers are covered with this sad one killing, but not about these tens of thousands of child killings that this guy has committed. This class knows that Canada is part of what Samir Amin once called a collective imperialism, right? The rich world. And we plunder the rest of the world at America's gunpoint. America's job is to provide the weaponry. They get the first take, but it's on the basis of their weaponry that we plunder the rest of the world. Sorry, yeah. I'm sorry. There's no microphone. No. I'm sorry. I wish. Should I start again? Has anybody heard what I said? If I stood up, okay. All right, I'll stand up. I'll stand on my own 2 feet. Now I have to lift this up. Okay. Anyway, we're rich. Canada's rich are rich because the rest of the world is poor. The poor world is poor. And the Americans keep it that way because people don't want to give up their resources and their labor for nothing. And America ensures with its weaponry that the whole northern world can basically exploit the rest of the world. We see things the way they do. And it doesn't matter, of course, whether the government is liberal or, as it usually is, like Chrétien or Martin or Manley. Remember Manley? He switched over. First he was a liberal, and then he went to justify the Afghanistan invasion. Or Ignatieff, you know, the guy. When he was an American, he defended Empire Light and Torture Light and humanitarian wars. And when he became a Canadian again, he didn't lose any sleep over Canada, the bastard. You remember that? I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. So it doesn't matter if it's a liberal government or a Tory government like Mulroney or Harper.